Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting on September 9, 2019. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's do item 4 if we can. This is always the first meeting after the school year starts. Is always one of the most exciting and meetings for the board, because it's when we welcome our new teachers and administrators, and we have a large group here. I think Mr. Bowden is going to introduce them and show us a picture and tell us where they're teaching. And I just want to say, just to introduce us, we are very grateful that you've either decided to continue your teaching career here or your leadership career here, or that you've decided to start with us from the beginning, if you will. So, Mr. Bowden, would you?
Sure. We've had another very busy off-season, as you would put it, with positions within the district to fill. And as we haven't had in the past, when we have openings in Guilford, we have a large amount of applicants. And really, I think it's a testament to the work that we do in district and the interest that people around the state have to come here. And we're very fortunate to have a process in which we strive each time to get the very best of the very best. And I can tell you tonight that we're very, very proud of this group that's here before you tonight. One of the things that I will say is when we do these introductions, just keep in mind that people are included in this that were hired after our orientation in our first meeting last year. So this will include some familiar faces that might have changed some positions, as well as our new hires for this summer. So without any further ado, I will introduce our changes in our leadership team. We have Bill Grimm, who's now the principal of A.W. Cox, moving over from LEAT. We have Jacqueline Ham, who's been with us as a special education coordinator at Guilford High School. Michelle Hand, the new principal at Melissa Jones School. James Papa, the new assistant principal at Adams. Mike Regan, who is now the principal. He was the co-principal last year, the principal of Adams. And Jason Scanziano, who's now moved into the director of pupil services. Kenesha Slowly, the new principal at Calvin Leet. Dr. Anine Crystal, new assistant superintendent. And in our certified staff teaching ranks, our new faculty are as follows. At A.W. Cox Elementary School, we have Susan Perotti. Also at A.W. Cox Elementary School, we've got Christina Rowe in kindergarten. At Calvin Leet, we have Amanda DeMeo in kindergarten. At Leet, we have Melissa Gargano, a grade 4 teacher. At Melissa Jones, we have Heather Dowdy, grade 4 teacher. At Jones, we have Sarah Laramie, grade 3 teacher. At Jones, we have Rex Sturdivant, music teacher. At Guilford Lakes, we have Jeanette Brito, grade 1 teacher. Also at Lakes, Sabrina Husted, special education teacher. At Lakes, Jessica Mathias, pre-K teacher. At Lakes, Alyssa Skybo, speech and language pathologist. At Baldwin Middle School, Chelsea Colony, school psychologist. Kellyanne Connors, physical education teacher at Baldwin. At Baldwin, Emily Dulac, grade 6 teacher. Ashley Huckabone, literacy coach at Baldwin. Sarah May, Spanish teacher at Baldwin. At Adams Middle School, Michael Zilikowski, social studies teacher. Curtis Gillette, mathematics teacher at Guilford High School. Luke Rosnick, science teacher at Guilford High School. At Guilford High School, Adams Middle School, and Baldwin Middle School, Lauren Taracco, school social worker. So I present to you tonight the class of the new people from last year and the new people for this year. But
Well,
we're really, really proud of all of them.
Please join me in welcoming them. Comments, anybody? Dr. Freeman, you look like you want to say something.
I always look like I would, but I'll just, I would just like to add, in late August, Dr. Crystal and I got the opportunity to spend 2 days with new teachers and new staff members in orientation, and I just want to echo what Mr. Bowden said. These were competitive positions, every one of them. The people that sit in front of you tonight won their way into those positions, and the time that we shared with them here for 2 days, I'm very excited about inviting these people and having them come join the team here in Guilford. They're going to add much to what we provide to the students and the children of Guilford here.
Great. Well, welcome to all of you. We are delighted that you chose to join us. I think the 9 of us probably think you made a good decision. You'll find out, but we're pretty confident that this is a special place to work, and we really care about our kids. We care about the quality of instruction. We care about the what we're doing, all of us. So thank you all for choosing to continue your career here or starting your career here, and we look forward to hearing about the great things you do moving forward. So thank you again.
Thank you. Welcome.
Then you probably have things to do, so don't be bashful about leaving. It's okay. You can stay if you want. It's a public meeting, but some of you may be getting up early to do lesson plans or whatever, so that's fine. So let's go back to the agenda. Item 3 on the agenda is action on the minutes of August 12th, 2019. There's a regular meeting, first of all. Everybody got those? Is there a
Yes.
motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections, changes, clarifications? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and then also on August 12, 2019, a special meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
That's a transportation subcommittee meeting, right?
Yeah.
So that would only be Mr. Baglio,
I'll move it.
okay, and Mr. Sands and Ms. Rader and Dr. Best, right? Okay, so Mr. Sands moved,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, okay, great. All right, item 5, public forum for topics on the board agenda only. Anybody? Okay. Expenditures, Mr. Baglio.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the expenditures for the month of August in the amount of $4,401,289.
Is there a second?
Second?
All right, we did discuss this in some detail in the Operations Committee meeting.
Yes.
Really nothing unusual particularly
Yep.
for this time of year. You picked a good month, actually, to do the expenditures, because summertime expenditures seem to be a little less complicated than wintertime expenditures. So, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. Communications. Well, let me just say one thing, actually, about the financials. We did get a very positive report about the food service. Maybe you were going to talk about that, Mr. Sands, at the Operations Committee, but I think it deserves to be highlighted that we did have a really a good year, both in terms of quality and also in terms of the financial situation with food service. And for those of us who have been on the board for a couple of years, it wasn't always that way. So
Yeah.
I think we,
Mrs. Biagetti really does deserve recognition for the work that she's done over the last several years, last year being the most recent example. Thank you, Mr.
yeah,
Boss.
no, it's a big change, big
Yep.
change. Communications, item 7. Anything? I actually had a really
Well-
quiet month. I don't know
Yeah,
about the rest
it
of you.
I've heard positive comments about the bus schedule this year.
Okay.
So.
That's a change.
I think-
That's great.
We have good-
I'll comment on that
So
briefly.
so I'd like to thank Mr. Bowden and Mr. Dorwin for doing what they did to make sure that the buses were getting to locations, in some cases, on schedule, even within that 10-minute
Yep.
timeframe. So,
Great, okay. Then I guess we're up to, no student reps yet, we'll have them in
Next month's meeting.
next month, okay. And then, so we're up to your report, Dr. Freeman.
Thank you. I do have a brief report tonight. I do want to note as I begin, we are scheduling our annual learning walks, the visits to each of the schools that we conduct. And while those are really targeted at the principals' learning and how the principals best move those forward, we have very much appreciated and we think benefited from having board members attend those visits in the last several years. So I'll send the calendar around and ask for you to sign off. I will remind and ask the board members that we try to, as often as possible, limit the visits to only one board member so that the focus does not shift from the principal and the teachers to the board members. Obviously, a couple people will need to double up if everybody's available, but beyond that, we'd like the focus to remain on the professional staff and welcome you to join us for the learning walks again this year. I also want to start with a few comments, Mr. Baglio, to build on the opening of school. I first want to take a moment just to thank Dr. Crystal and Mr. Bowden, who ran Convocation this year. I was unable to attend Convocation this year, missed being there, but I've heard nothing but positive comments about how we launched the school year with the return of the teachers. Dr. Crystal and I will be taking a portion of Convocation and taking it on the road. We'll be joining faculty meetings in each of the buildings to make sure that the interactive performance sort of piece that we work to build into every Convocation doesn't get lost this year. But I very much appreciated the opening that we had for our professional staff with 4 new principals in our schools this year, 4 principals in new schools this year. We then had a couple of great days of professional development on the heels of that opening Convocation. And then the opening with students, I have to say, the reports that I have received has been that we've had one of the most positive, one of the most enthusiastic, one of the best openings that we've had in several years. Our new principals hit the ground running. Teachers were ready to go to receive their students. Parents and students had a warm welcome. There was music at the high school and Adams as our students arrived for the first day of school in both of those locations. And to Mr. Baglio's point, school buses today cleared the roads at 4:33. Our last elementary student exited his or her school bus at 4:33 this afternoon. Within the first couple of days, we were running very close to on time. And I specifically want to thank Mr. Dorwin and the bus company and all of their work in providing that opening for us. Nothing can undo a positive first day as quickly as confusion at bus time in the afternoon. And from our kindergartners to our high school students, we had a great opening by all counts, and the transportation is no small part of that. So I want to thank everybody involved. I do have a preliminary enrollment update for you in your folders. Last year during budget season, we had projected an enrollment of 3,232 students. As of today's unofficial account, please remember that October 1 is the official enrollment date, but as of today's unofficial count, we were at 3,237. We are 5 students over the projected enrollment that we anticipated coming in. That does show a minor decline. That shows us being 54 students smaller than we were last year at the official October 1 count. Distribution of those students fell a little oddly with a spike in kindergarten enrollment at Lakes. So as I have already informed the board, but I want to repeat here, we have added a 4th kindergarten section at Lakes to accommodate what appeared to be a spike in kindergarten enrollments there. And as soon as that position was added, we saw 1 student withdraw from Lakes and no more continued to enroll, and we saw students continuing to enroll at Jones. So you will see that while we have 4 sections at Lakes and only 3 at Jones, all of our kindergarten numbers remain in the teens. We don't have any kindergartens who are extending into the 20s, but you will see class sizes slightly larger at Jones than at Lakes. Had we held the 3 position at Lakes, we'd be sitting at 19 students in all of those locations. And again, we continue to have in and out migration across the course of the school year, so I am confident that we put the resource in the right location. We will have a more complete picture for you on October 1st, which is the state's official day to measure attendance. I also wanted to update you on hiring and vacancies. At this point, as of today, we have certified teachers in every classroom. However, what is unusual and what is different than in past years is that in 2 of those positions, we have 2 educators who have tendered their resignations, and we only have them in those classrooms today because we have held on to them for 30 days with an agreement with their new hires. Kevin Bruno and Jessica Robinson have both accepted positions in other districts and will be leaving us at the end of this month. We are currently interviewing to fill both of those positions. Additionally, I want to inform you, and I wouldn't usually be making this notification, Jim Murtagh has been our technology integration specialist, and that was coded as a non-certified position for the past several years. And Jim excelled in that position. Jim has also moved on to other employment, and after unsuccessfully finding a non-certified person to fill that position, we have transitioned that position into a certified position. Falls within the budget that we had established. In fact, a starting teacher salary would be less than the salary that Jim was earning. A top teacher step would be more than. But we have reposted that as a certified position. We'll be looking for somebody with Connecticut teacher certification to fill that position. So that means that technically today, we're sitting on 3 certified vacancies, although 2 of the classes are covered and 1 of those is not a direct classroom position. Beyond that, we are completely hired up and we are fully staffed for this year. And you should be watching in future board packets for notifications about the 2 hires for both the speech and language position at Lakes, the music position at Guilford High School, and now a technology integration specialist. Jim was in very many ways doing the work of a coach, working with teachers to integrate technology properly into their lesson planning and into their classroom delivery. Many districts have carried it as a certified position. We didn't have the need because Jim did so well in that position, but now we have experienced that need. And then the last piece I am going to hand off to Dr. Crystal to share the summer Title I programming with you, but thought I'd pause here, Mr. Bloss, and see if anybody had any questions before we do that.
Questions, Raymond? Can we say publicly what Mr. Bruno's doing? Is it?
I think we can, and I'm excited for him. Mr. Bruno has taken a position as a K through 12 music curriculum administrator in the Fairfield community. I need to say that for a music educator and for an aspiring administrator, it's a dream job. It's a job that most districts have eliminated because they don't have the capacity to continue to maintain curriculum-specific positions in those arts areas. Fairfield is large enough that they have been able to maintain that position, and Mr. Bruno, I know, is going to be incredibly successful there and hard to replace here.
Can we talk a little bit about how we're going to replace him? Because that is a big hole.
Well, so the first thing that we have going for us is that there are educators from across the state who would want to work in the music program here in Guilford, and particularly in Guilford High School. Beyond that, I know that Mr. Macenti and his team have been inviting quality candidates to put their names into that pool. The high school team has begun interviews already. I believe they have some finalists coming in as early as later this week. So we are trying to move the process forward expeditiously, but also as Kevin leaves us for another exciting opportunity, I have no doubt that this represents an exciting opportunity that some talented educator is going to be willing to move forward to move into. These positions in Guilford are few, and when they come open, there is talent around the state that wants to fill these positions.
Isn't Mr. Bruno also with the IB program, the Theory of Knowledge?
Mr. Bruno did teach the Theory of Knowledge class here at the high school as part of the IB program. And that class, we were aware of Mr. Bruno's decision before the first day of school. So that class was reassigned and it was covered, and the students have no interruption in their instruction in that class. Obviously, students who are taking music and choral courses with Mr. Bruno, there's no way for us to avoid a transition for them. But we'll make it as smooth as we can and bring them the best candidate that we can.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. All right, Dr. Crystal?
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the summer literacy program that took place this past summer. I came on board just as the program was starting. And I was fortunate to be able to be there and see some of it on many, many days while the students were working. So the overarching questions in the program are listed here. The program primarily focused on science and engineering. And these were all 29 first grade students going into second grade who spent the 3 weeks in the summer working as scientists and engineers. And those were the overarching questions, and there were 2 culminating tasks that were undertaken. One, 2 of the classes did, and one, the third class did. So they were creating a book or a presentation that describes the traits of scientists and engineers and their contributions to the world, or they were designing their own engineering challenge. And you're going to see some pictures of students working, and they started looking at worms. So you can see them all looking at their little worm farms with magnifying glasses, and they were observing and taking notes about the worms. They were measuring worms. You can see this young man measuring his worm. And recording their observations, drawing pictures. They kept logs the way scientists do when they make their observations. Then they did some research into worms, so they used the iPads and they did research about worms and what they were looking at so they could understand more about them. And then they went on to observing seeds. So they did some work with bean seeds. This is the journal of one of the students who was making observations about a seed growing in a paper towel. The Eli Whitney Museum came in one day and worked with them on building bugs, models of bugs. And they did one of my favorite activities, the owl pellet dissection. So they got to pull apart the owl pellets and look at the bones that were inside them. And then they moved into learning about the engineering process. So starting with ask, imagine, plan, create, and then improve. So these were the steps that they followed as they did specific engineering activities. They had to define the problem, come up with some solutions, make a plan. I was there on the day that they were drawing diagrams, follow the plan, then test it out, and then make improvements. So the first thing they did as an engineering task was to design a bird feeder. Some of the parents commented that the kids were still working on these at home. They took them home and they extended the learning in the program. I was there on this day when they were making their paper plate games, and it was fascinating to watch them testing their marble, going through a paper plate maze, and then just having other people play it, and then bringing the marble game back and making improvements and changes to it. So they were following that design process. Then they built structures out of marshmallows and toothpicks. They designed parachutes and tested them outside, made improvements on those. And then at the end, there was a day where the parents all came and the students were showing the parents what they did and explaining the process to the parents, and we called it the Showcase of Learning. So you can see the parents sitting next to the kids looking at their research and looking at some of the items that they built and the work that they did. These are just a sampling of parent feedback. I actually heard one parent say to the teacher, I was just standing nearby, and a parent said, my child never really liked to read much at home, but after this, being in this program, he's reading all the time at home now, and he's reading about scientists and reading nonfiction materials. So we heard many, many positive comments. I know Lindsay, I don't know where she is, but Lindsay's in the audience over there, and she was one of the teachers there. So she has firsthand knowledge of what the students were doing every day and the progress that we saw with the students. The design process was really high impact for these kids. The improvements they made based on a test really left a mark on them, and they became flexible thinkers, and they worked very diligently to solve problems. This is the attendance data. We had 29 students. I believe, Lindsay, what was there, were there one or two that didn't finish the program? I think you had said? Yeah, two. I think one of them, we said moved. Oh, okay, so the twins moved. But other than that, this was the attendance data. The assessments that were done at the beginning and at the end were qualitative in nature, so they weren't, a very strictly calculated assessments, but they were more of a qualitative nature, so we saw a huge amount of growth in the kids from the beginning to the end, with these assessments that were scored with a rubric, so they were open-ended qualitative types of assessments. And this is Lindsay's quote about what happened in the program. Lindsay, do you want to just say anything about the experience this summer?
Come on up to the podium, please.
I'm so sorry. Could somebody who sees that better read? Would you mind reading the quote out loud?
Sure,
I'm
well,
just
I'm
having-
gonna, since
Or
it's
you
Lindsay's
could read
quote,
it
she's
out
gonna
loud.
read it.
I would love to hear it.
I will read it as what I'd like to share. Students showed tremendous growth over the 3 weeks in their ability to persist through a challenge, whether it be observing part of the natural world around them or improving their engineering design after a first try. High levels of student engagement were evident when tasks were presented with authentic problems to solve, such as creating a game for their friends to play or building a bird feeder for outside our classroom. Powerful learning took place in the conversations students had with each other while planning, creating, and improving their solutions to problems.
Thank you.
Can you just talk a little bit about what the techniques were that you were using, and what do you think made it so successful?
Do you mean instructional techniques?
Right.
Sure. So we used a variety of instructional techniques. We used questioning the author, QTA, which is a familiar approach to students. That was how we engaged them in text discussions. So they read picture books about scientists and engineers, and then they applied the way that scientists and engineers operated to the things they were doing in the classroom. So we charted traits of scientists and engineers, things like being persistent, being determined, being observant, and then kids would try to apply those traits when they were looking at their worms or when they were trying to solve the problem of their parachute. We used writing to learn, so students often wrote in their journals to express their thinking. We gave students feedback as we worked with them, and we conferred with them one-on-one. The nice thing about the summer program is that the class size is so small, so you really do get to give kids one-on-one individual attention. I think those were the most powerful things. And then just the kids using each other, socializing intelligence together and building on each other's thoughts and ideas as they were working. And improving from what the feedback that they were getting from their friends around their designs.
How were students selected? How was this group determined?
So I'm not the director of the program, so I can't say for 100% certainty, but I believe that it was teacher recommendation. They were recommended by their teachers.
We receive limited Title I funds in the district. Not all schools have access, so the Title I funds generally need to stay at the home school, and then teachers will recommend students who they believe would benefit from some additional contact over the summer.
Can you tell us a little bit about the qualitative assessments and how you assess the kids?
Sure. So we used regular Tier 1 assessments like observations, anecdotal notes, our conferring notes that we kept on students each day. We did have 3 kind of assessment questions that the program was centered on, and that was the questions you saw at the very beginning. So what are the traits of scientists and engineers that make them successful? What are the habits of scientists and engineers that make them successful? And then what types of contributions do scientists and engineers make to our world? And so kids were asked those questions at the very beginning of the program, and they were asked them again toward the end of the program, but how they were assessed looked different depending on the student. So students at this age who are able to write their answers wrote their answers. Some students we interviewed one-on-one and wrote down what they said. Some of the information I saw as they were creating their problems to solutions, I heard them talking about the traits that they had learned, so I would note that down. So there's kind of a variety of assessments used.
Every summer, it's usually a different focus every summer.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Do you see any opportunities to refine the curriculum for the second grade science?
We've done that in the past. I know we've sampled some units during the summer program that have then worked their way
Right,
into the
into the
regular first grade curriculum, yeah. This was a little bit different because it wasn't a unit that we got from the Institute for Learning. It was something that the teachers worked on and created together. So this was our brainchild and not an IFL brainchild.
As the monies sort of move every year, we do use these opportunities in the summer as labs. And so in many past years, it has been a unit that we have sort of piloted in these summer settings and moved on. What you heard Lindsay reference today is a number of the high leverage instructional strategies that we've been working with across the district for some time now. And hopefully the teachers who participated in the summer will be able to, and Lindsay being a coach during the school year as well as an instructor in the summer, will be able to take those learnings and help push that out to teachers using those instructional practices, those strategies in many classrooms across Cox Elementary School. So yes, it's generally a different program every year. To a degree, that's dictated by where those Title I monies fall, and that can be different year to year, but we always try to learn something professionally from it that can benefit a larger number than just those students who were lucky enough to participate over the summer.
But this program was successful. Is there something out of this that we could incorporate into our existing?
I think so, yeah. I think the engineering design process, and we're just getting started with that in K through 4. Teachers last year tried kind of one engineering design unit and I think saw many of the same things that I described. And I think the plan moving forward, especially I know the math coaches are looking to support this, is to think more about the engineering piece and what that design process can look like in classrooms on a regular basis.
I was impressed by the experiential nature of the program.
Other questions, comments? It sounds,
Just the engineering part allows children to be creative. And
Absolutely.
I think that's how you engage them, which is really nice to hear they have that opportunity.
well, thank you. It sounds like it
Thanks.
was a
Yeah,
very,
thanks so much.
very successful program.
Very impressive.
Okay, that's the end of your report, Dr. Freeman?
Yes, that concludes our report.
Okay. There is, and we're on the board agenda, there is in your packets a draft set of district priorities for 2019 and 2020. I'd like to at least add to the agenda that we receive it and discuss for possible action. I'm not saying we have to do this tonight, but at least receive it and get it on our radar for a later meeting. So can we add that to the agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we'll do that as 10.2. So there are some personnel items. First, a resignation for the purpose of retirement of Celia Myers-Wannett, library media specialist at the high school, after 31 and a half years, and it is effective
I
February
would note
1st.
the effective date. Yes, that is a mid-year, yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to ratify that resignation, that retirement?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, obviously with the board's thanks after that amount of service. And then also 2 resignations that we've already talked about, Kevin Bruno at the high school, effective September 24th, and Jessica Robison at LEAT, also effective same date. Is there a motion to ratify those resignations?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, I think I echo what Mr. Sands was saying about the role that Mr. Bruno has had, both in the music department and also in the International Baccalaureate program. One of my daughters had him in for Theory of Knowledge last year and said that he did a fabulous job, and obviously the music program here is very beyond outstanding, frankly, and it's been no small part to Mr. Bruno, but it's a great opportunity for him to go into administration and on a town-wide level, so.
I've reminded him of the parable of Mike Regan.
Yeah, well, is that a parable?
It is now.
It's just a story.
I'm hoping
I guess
I'm
it is
hoping
a
it's.
factual story.
I always get
Sounds
those
better.
parable, simile, metaphor things all messed up. What is that? Anyway,
I will add, which is kind of couched in your statement, he also, in that role, was very involved in the theater arts program
True.
and the musicals in the spring as well.
Very much so.
So,
and then there are 4 appointments that just they're already here, but we need to ratify them, and that these happened after our last meeting. So it's Melissa Gargano at LEAT, Christina Rowe at Cox in kindergarten, Jessica Mathias, Lakes Special Ed Pre-K, and Jeanette Brito, first grade teacher also at Lakes. Is there a motion to ratify those appointments?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Well, the hiring feels really great this year. Just talking to people, there was an interesting mix of people that are brand new to teaching, but also people that have been out for a couple, 3 years, right? And so it was a very, I'm sure that the administrators hired wisely and from a very talented pool. So it felt very, very good.
We're excited.
Yeah. 10.2, is it 10.2? Yeah, 10.2 is to receive at least the district priorities. Have we talked about this already in some fashion?
We did. We spoke about this earlier this summer at a workshop meeting, and then in August, the administrative team on retreat spent a significant amount of time talking about these. I will note, and it builds off of Mr. Bowden's presentation. When we spoke at the workshop meeting earlier this summer, I noted Dr. Keene's focus on keeping the main thing, and that over the last 9 years, we've worked to keep our 3 priorities essentially the same. And there's a priority about the overall environment, there's a priority about the professional environment, and then there's a priority that speaks to the classroom environment. I highlighted that with the significant changes to the leadership team this year, that this was likely a year of maintaining pace and maintaining quality and transitioning successfully a number of new important players on our team. So the work that we did at the retreat, and quite honestly, the team balked at that a little bit. The team wants to move forward quickly. The team wants to keep doing new and exciting things. We have constrained that to some degree, and I do want to tell you that the draft we have in front of you is in very large measure similar to the draft that you saw last year. The biggest change we did last year to the 3 priorities was in reordering them. We used to build from the classroom priority, saying that the classroom is the most important, and to support that, we want to have a good professional environment, and underneath all of that as a foundation should be a healthy environment. Last year, we reordered those, and we said, in fact, the healthy environment needs to be the fountainhead. That needs to be first because everything else springs from that. And so that reordering stays in place this year, and the only change is the addition of the word, the addition of the word equitable to the first bullet. We have spent significant time this summer as an administrative team talking about the importance that ensuring the opportunities that we offer to students are honestly and sincerely offered to all students, and that all students are able to enter successfully into the opportunities that we provide. So the only change to the priorities would be the addition of that word equitable, and the initiatives remain very much the same as well, with some reordering. Again, the first initiative that says to enhance our school climate to be globally and culturally aware, accepting, and inclusive, last year that was at the bottom of the list. It was there, but it's been at the bottom of the list for 2 or 3 years. We thought that it was important to bring that to the top of the list. Promoting classroom environments, task designs, and instructional strategies that foster social and emotional health and wellness remains important. And in fact, when you look at those 2 bullets, they pair really well with that first priority, that we need to make sure that this is a healthy, supportive environment for all, and that all students share in every opportunity that we present. We then get to that professional bullet. We want to continue to strengthen the professional learning communities to support our teachers' capacity to provide challenging, stimulating, and engaging tasks to all students. Last year, we had a focus on the new science curriculum. This year, we're broadening that out to be a focus on STEM. We do have 2 initiatives in district this year. We continue to work on our math focus. We are currently working with a fellow from IFL who's continuing a focus on instructional strategies in the math classrooms. And this year, while we have the new next generation science standard curriculum in place, we're working with science teachers from Adams and the department chair at the high school with the Center for Assessment out of New Hampshire, working on task design and assessments in the math classrooms. And how do you assess activities like the ones we just heard Lindsay talk about, because you can't assess those on multiple choice measures. And so we do have a really in-depth science and math subject-specific or discipline-specific professional development strand built in through this year. And then you also heard Lindsay reference, I believe, all 3 of the high leverage instructional practices that we've been focusing on. These are 3 classroom strategies that cut across grade level or subject area. Every teacher, regardless of grade level or subject area, can be working with facilitating student talk in the classroom around the academics, can be providing opportunities for individuals, peers, and the teacher to provide really effective feedback, and using writing not as a measure of what you've retained, but as a tool for thinking and learning moving forward. And that leads then into having a really thoughtful and well-designed assessment system to monitor what the students are learning. So again, if you were to take out last year's version of these priorities and initiatives, it'll look very similar. We have sharpened some of them. There is no completely new initiative on that list this year. And again, I would say that in a year with this much transition, that's a completely positive thing. We have good work in front of us. We will not be taking the year off. We'll be digging into that new work, but think it's a year for consistency and not new initiatives. In past years, we've presented this to you and then had further conversation at the September workshop meeting. I'd be happy to accept your approval of these priorities and initiatives tonight, but also happy to continue the conversation knowing that you're receiving them for the first time this evening.
What's your pleasure?
I'd be inclined to do it at the workshop.
It would probably be fair
We usually
to
talk
kick it
about
up.
it
Yeah. And why change now, you know?
So we will have this on your workshop agenda, Dr. Crystal and I, and I'm sure some of the principals will be there and happy to continue. this
So I'd
conversation.
suggest, though, that if board members have any thoughts, observations, comments, to email them to Dr.
Yeah.
Freeman between now and then, so we're not, like, the one thing I've learned after this amount of time is that editing in a group is probably not a productive
Not the best use of
process.
time.
No. So if we can maybe get those ahead of time, that would be helpful.
Great, thank
All
you
right, well,
very much.
thanks.
All right.
Okay. Committee reports, policy committee?
We will be meeting soon, but have not met in the last month,
Okay,
so no new report at the moment.
okay. Operations committee, Mr. Sands?
Yes, we covered 4 areas. As you reported, we had a very favorable food service report for the year. It was an outstanding year. A lot of progress was made. I think that the whole food service area has good momentum going into this year, and we're excited about what may come from that. We discussed the issue of the district's liability for post-retirement obligations to to retired employees. This isn't really a big deal for us, but it's a bigger deal for the town, and so we're kind of trying to work our way through that. We reviewed on a preliminary basis some of the defense we have against cyber attacks against our IT systems. I think we need to continue to review that a little bit to really get a handle on how we can protect ourselves best. And we had a very favorable report on the facilities work that was done over the summer. All of that was done on time and within budget. We have a couple of the projects that are continuing, but I think by the end of this month, most of that will be done. But the work that's going on is not impeding the classroom work. So I think it was a successful summer. And that would conclude my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, any other comments about operations?
I think I would just add, right, that the discussion about cyber attacks is not because we've had any event, right, but because, in a due diligence as a board and administration, we like to make sure that our systems are well protected, and certainly the initial indication is that we are in actually quite good shape on that front, but we'll continue to research and look into all our systems to make sure that they are all in good shape.
Good. Curriculum instruction and assessment, anything?
Next month.
Okay. Town committee liaisons, anything?
Land Acquisition Committee met last week with no business to report back to the board.
All right. How about Learn Board of Directors? I know it looks like we don't have coverage for the next meeting, I think, right?
I'm not sure.
I think that's right,
Thus
yes.
far,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, well, we'll follow up. All right, item 12, public questions. Anybody? Okay. We are currently either in the midst of, about to be in the midst of, or close to being in the midst of, almost out of the midst of negotiations with 3 of our 7 bargaining units. That's the teachers union, custodians union, and the administrators union. So we do have an executive session to talk about the current status of that. So I will take a motion, please, to go into executive session to discuss those items.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're going to go into executive session, but then when we come out of executive session, it'll only be for the purposes of adjourning, and there will be no further public votes this evening. Thank you.